So I like to talk about essence, and I know I've mentioned this in quite a lot of my podcasts. I'm really interested in essence. I'm really interested in truth, or I'm really interested in logos. If we have the essence of something, we've really got a lot of power. So when I became a nightclub doorman, I went onto the door with 10,000 techniques. I basically went on there to overcome my own fears. I had a fear of confrontation, so I thought I'd go on the door and overcome that fear by placing myself in the middle of it, by hunting my own shadows, by leaning into those sharp edges. When I became a nightclub doorman with all these physical techniques, I learned very, very quickly that the physical essence of physical combat was preemption. It was normally very short range punching techniques, or sometimes people would use like headbutts and stuff like that, but mostly it was just about, and again forgive me, I know this is crude, but it will lead on to, I need to show you the genesis of the idea so you can see where it leads on to, because on the doors this stuff had to work for me in life and death situations, and if it can work for me there, it can work anywhere. We're going back to what Masashi said, about master one thing, master all things. So you go on the door and you go on there believing that the block encounter, the trap encounter, the grab and throw is all going to be perfect for me on the door, but actually you realise very quickly that the environment won't allow that. The environment will not tolerate that. That'll be tolerated in a room where there's rules, and where there's whistles and bells and where there's orange at half time, but it won't be tolerated in an environment where a mistake will get you sent to the A&E, or where a mistake will get you sent to prison, or where a mistake might get you sent to the cold slab, with a toe tag. So mistakes are not tolerated. So you learn very quickly to find the essence of something. This is what I call the acid bath experience. You put yourself under massive pressure. You sitting in an acid bath, and everything that is superfluous strips away. So you find yourself going from 10,000 techniques down to, and lots of different concepts, down to one technique and one concept. The technique is preemption. The concept is the technique is, say, a right cross, and the concept is preemption with artifice. And artifice just means to deceive. So you maybe you would ask a question to deceive and engage the brain and then attack. So I found very quickly and very brutally that preemption worked every single time. It worked consistently. It worked consistently wherever you are, providing you had the mindset, providing you had the courage to be first. All the other stuff was very dangerous. All the other stuff that I'd taught and that I'd learnt was very dangerous in that environment. It was about preemption, and most often you were facing more than one person. We presumed everyone was carrying, so you had to be massively preemptive very, very quickly. You had a window, and if you didn't take it, it was a downward spiral. So I learned very quickly from this acid bath experience that the stuff that worked was very small. It didn't need much. That was the essence of that. Later on, of course, I realised that the essence of self-protection generally is avoidance. Just don't be there. If you're not there, it doesn't actually physically exist. You have nothing to defend against. And if you want to go to the metaphysical essence, the metaphysical essence is that violence is projected from us. If we have insecurities and we have fears, and that becomes part of our dream, we project that into the world and we create it, and we end up defending ourselves against the things we've created. This is my belief. This is what I've experienced. I hope nobody's offended by that, but because most people will say, well, I didn't look for trouble and I didn't go out looking for trouble, there's just violence in the world. But from my experience, I never thought I'd look for trouble, but actually trouble was in me. The violence was in me. I was projecting it into the world, and I was projecting monsters into the world, fighting against the monsters I projected, and then saying, isn't the world terrible? It was me that was projecting it all the time. So I'm the reality maker. I'm the sheet of film, and what's projected into the world from this vast light, what's projected onto the screen, comes through my own personal filters, my own conditioning, my own cognition. I can change all that. That's a lifetime journey, but I can change that, and of course I have. So ultimately the essence was, don't create the violence in the first place. If you can find a frequency of love, or if you can clear your filter or your film up to such a degree that you're just creating pure light, as Ushba says, it will be as though, if people come towards you, it will be as though they're taking on the whole universe, because they're just coming into great light, great power. So ultimately, on a physical level, preemption. It's really simple, it works consistently. On a broader level, it's avoidance. When I stopped working the door, I just didn't get involved in violence. That's avoidance, it's basic avoidance. On a metaphysical level, don't be the creator of violence in your world. Most people are going around creating negative situations from their own projection, because it's on the core beliefs. The core beliefs can be changed. So, finding the essence of the door was disappointing at first. It was disappointing. So you find this and you think, fucking hell, I've trained all my life in martial arts and it's just about banging someone with a right cross. And it seemed very disappointing, and I was desperate that the blocks and counters should have worked, and that there was room for all the other stuff, all the fancy stuff, but actually the situations just generally didn't tolerate that. And of course there were exceptions, but the exceptions didn't disprove the rule. Consistently this worked for me, and it worked for very ordinary people. That's why boxers were so effective, because they just really had the one thing. They just banged people, and they were weaned on contact. They were weaned on trying to knock people out, and they were used to taking shots. So the essence is quite simple. So what's exciting about that isn't that I want to encourage you to go out and bang people, because that's the last thing I want to do. Or even violence, even well intended, rebounds on itself. And I've had to atone for all the stuff I did. But the essence of that, finding the essence of that, was what was exciting for me. Because I thought, well, if there's an essence in physical combat, and like I said, you go on with 10,000 techniques, most of it is superfluous. If there's an essence to that, then there must be an essence to all things in life. There must be an essence to everything. There must be a simplicity to all of it. And of course, then you start going into alchemy, and alchemy is about finding the essence. It's about finding that key. So then you start thinking, well, what, in my own life, what's the essence? How can I, so instead of like, say if I throw a punch, for instance, maybe the essence of physical combat is just a preemption, but maybe I'm doing that with a big haymaker. I know the first time I got into a real situation, into a difficult situation on the door, I fought these two guys, and I used about 10 different techniques to knock them both out. And John Anderson was watching me curiously, and when I come back, he said, "Oh, that was really impressive, Geoff." He says, "But you could have done that with one, at the most, 2 techniques." And I said, "Oh, that's really interesting." So I wasted lots of time, lots of energy, and lots of display when I could have just gone boom, straight to it. Similarly with a punch, I could do a big lunging haymaker, that comes around in an arc, and knock somebody out. But maybe if I just go from A to B, not the concept of Wing Chun, of just going straight to the target, but only moving maybe about 8 or 10 inches, I can still cut that down even further. I can find even more essence. I can hit from so close, such close range that people don't even know who's hit who. I had an incident in a nightclub one night with this guy called 20 Neck, a huge rugger player who could never be knocked out apparently. And there was me, John Anderson, and another guy, I think it was Colin Maynard, a friend called Colin, and we were stood around this guy, and John was asking him to leave, and he wasn't going to go, and John said, "Well, you'll have to go," and he said to John, "Well, you better take me out then," which is the worst thing you could have said to John. John touched his hand here, and as the guy pulled his hand back, John let a short left hook go, and it must have moved maybe 6 or 8 inches, and the guy was a lump, he was heavy, and he knocked him straight out, and he hit the floor so hard that the drinks jumped off the table. This guy was so big they couldn't carry him out. They had to roll him out of the club, move all the tables, and he was such a bully that when John knocked him out, the whole room broke into a spontaneous applause. But the punch was so short in its arc from A to B that people in the room didn't know who'd thrown the punch. John hit him and walked away, and somebody come up to Colin and congratulated Colin on a great punch. And Colin just said, "Oh, well, it's what I train for. It's how I train." Colin didn't even throw the punch. So the essence was so small it hardly moved. So it's trying to get rid of anything superfluous. It's trying to get rid of anything that's not functional. It's about trying to get rid of anything that doesn't work. Now the concept of that in the punch is wonderful, but we don't want to be banging people. But if we can take that concept into our health, can we get our bodies so that we've only got things on there that are functional? There's nothing there that shouldn't be there. What about our minds? Can we fine tune our mind so that there's nothing on there that's superfluous? There's no false core beliefs. There's no racism, no sexism, no isms at all. Just this neat conduit for massive power. What about our relationships? Can we fine tune our relationship by just keeping the essence, getting rid of the bullshit, getting rid of all the stupid stuff? What about our business? What about if we could fine tune our business so that it's very linear, so that the trajectory or the arc or the narrative of our business is so tight that it is massively efficient, just like a tree. You know, there's nothing superfluous on the tree. It just functions. So that's what the door taught me. It said, if you're in business, make your business functional like this punch. It goes from A to B with no distractions, nothing's wasted. There's hardly any energy used, and when it lands, it has impact. We do the same with our business. We do the same in our health. We look at what's the essence of it. Of course, the essence with health is going to be palate, what we put in our mouth. Once we get the palate right, we also get control of the sensory body, and the senses fall into line. When we control the senses, we control ourselves. When we control the self, we control our world. That is a direct narrative. I'm teaching a writing class at the moment, and I'm teaching people to write a narrative that has nothing in it that's superfluous. You might have a great monologue or a great storyline, but it doesn't fit into that narrative. So we cut it out. So we have a narrative that is just beautifully linear, beautifully functional. That's what we take to war with us. Then we look at that writing and say, okay, how can we make that work in our life? You're 3 stone overweight, so your narrative, you have lots of superfluous stuff on your narrative. Your mind is gross. Your mind has got lots of distorted core beliefs. So your narrative there is not right. You've got too much story based around the essence, as Masashi says. So get rid of that. Your relationship is dysfunctional because you're not looking at what the essence is. The essence is to give love. Is to give love with nothing expected in return. That's the narrative of your relationship. Your business is exactly the same. Your business is to serve, is to find people to serve, to find people to serve from a place of love. That is the narrative. That is the arc. That is that's the essence of your business. And anything that's superfluous that you can get rid of, you can just gradually cut away. So then when you find the essence in one thing, and this is what's exciting for me, when you find the essence in one thing, you find the essence in all things. So search for the essence. It's right in front of you. In Islam they use the word yakin. I've spoke about this before. The truth is undeniably right in front of you. So look for the essence. And once you've got the essence of one thing, you can find the essence of all things.